Evolutionary.org, episode 627 is coming your way. Today, we're going to do an interview with moderator S.Gentz, S.Gentz, the truth. So, on this one, we're going to go over several different things. We're going to go over his background, recent and prior logs, gear and supplements that he is taking and that he's taken in the past and that he loves. We're going to talk about Lucy and cabin life. If you don't know who Lucy is, you got to wait till we talk about it till we talk about her during the show. She's a beloved part of the Evo family as well. And then we're gonna hear from him dropping some knowledge and advice to everybody on here. He's been around a long time. He's been very consistent, and that's one of the things about him is the consistency. So we're gonna get into it, and he's gonna tell us how he manages to stay so damn consistent and on point with everything. First, to remind everyone, we are on Apple, we are on Spotify. We would really appreciate if you guys liked and subbed to the podcast on all the platforms out there. Drop some comments. Make sure you're subbing and make sure you get help us out, get the algorithms picking up the podcast. So let's get right to it. S.Gentz, your most recent log that you've started, it's a really, really good log. And you've had so many different logs. Of all the guests we've had so far, I would say that you've had, what, two, four, like six logs throughout on Evo. Is that correct?
It is correct. And
Yep.
thank you for having me on, guys, today. But yeah, I have about 6, 7 logs on there starting, I think, around maybe 2019, 2020.
Awesome. And let's talk about a little bit about the most recent log. If those of you out there want to go, you can always go on the forum and you can look him up if you do the search and you put in under member, you put in S.Gentz, and that will be in the show notes. And you can pull up his post, but you can also look in his signature and you can see a list of his logs. His most recent log is called S.Gentz 2025-26 growth phase log with PSL. And the nice thing about this is he started out at 193.2 pounds, and now you're up over 200 pounds. Where are you at right now, S.Gentz? 206 about?
I'm 206 this morning, actually.
Wow. So you've had a big improvement from, let's say, September, October. It's been like less than a month, right?
Yeah.
And you've
Yeah.
I
already
had
put
him
on,
down last week, Steve, at 206. So he's sorry, 202 point something. So he's gone up 4 pounds since the last 10 days or something. That's fantastic.
Yeah. This growth phase has been going great so far. I've been seeing improvements almost daily. Not too much body fat coming on, so I'm happy overall.
all right. Yep. Excellent. So that is good to hear, buddy. You're doing fantastic. Okay. So let's start a little bit about your background. Besides the weight, tell us about your height. Tell us about your age. Tell us about where your body fat has been fluctuating.
So I'm 5'11", 47 years old. Um, last couple years, body weight has always been like in the 190 to 210 range, pretty average. I pushed up to about 225 a couple times, and then I've gotten as low without show prep. I've gotten as low as maybe like about 189, 190, which will put me at like right around 10%, 11%, which is it's pretty nice to walk around like that.
Yeah, you look really, really lean, and that's impressive, especially in America, and especially, you live in like upstate New York, right?
Yeah.
And
Yes.
Yeah.
and so I mean, it's like you're not, in America, really anywhere where you live, like aside from like living in Southern California and like some places like in the Northeast and stuff, we're an obese nation and we have a very high body fat. We're the most obese nation in the world, aside from Samoa and aside from a couple Middle Eastern countries where people are so rich to just sit around eating sweets
It's
all day.
cultural, Steve. Is Let me ask you a question, and again, I think this is even going to apply to the obesity thing that Steve's talking about. What made you go to the gym? What made you want to work out and do what you do now? And how long has that been going on?
I've trained most of my life. I was a little bit on the heavier side when I was a kid. So when I was, early 20s, I would go to the gym, maybe not regularly, not as serious as I am right now, but it's pretty much always been a part of my life to some degree.
But
And then,
as
yeah, were you?
sorry, as going to
Yeah.
the gym, but what made you want to? Was you unhappy with being overweight before? What made you stick it out as well? I mean, consistency is a word that Steve used earlier. A lot of people, myself, when I was a teenager, and I'm sure Steve, would go to the gym, but they find it difficult. They have other things that distract them. What's made you keep going all these years and keep plugging away? The fact that you've been able to transform and you want to continue that, or what's inspired you over those years to just keep doing what you're doing?
Well, like I said, initially it was just mainly to look a little better. You know, I was kind of tubby, so I wanted to kind of get past that phase, and I knew sitting on the couch eating and playing video games wasn't going to cut it. So something needed to be done. So I just spent a couple years just casually going to the gym, doing some cardio, things like that, just to kind of keep things moving in the right direction. I would say around 2015, 16, the gym was a little bit more secondary as I was more of an endurance athlete at that point, doing like Ironman triathlon, long distance running, long distance swimming, things like that. So the gym was kind of secondary to that. It was more just to keep toned and just to hold on to some kind of muscle because I was basically running 100 plus miles a week. So it's you need something, food and training obviously to keep what muscle you have if you're training like that. But up until I would say 2018, I actually had a shoulder surgery and I wasn't able to train for a little while. And once I was able to train again, something different kind of ignited in there, and my main focus shifted towards weight training and a little bit of bike riding. Basically, that was.
Yeah.
Did you grow
Steve,
up? And then
I'm just thinking of your journey, Steve, because you've done triathlons and I've
yeah,
done middle
I was
distance.
gonna
So yeah,
say like one of the influences growing up was I had people that I watched do that. Did you have influences growing up, parents, uncles, aunts that were athletes that were really busting their ass and being consistent, or is it something out of whack for your family situation?
It's pretty different. I mean, growing up, it was my father liked to fish and things like that. My mom was a school teacher. Neither of them did anything athletic. They were both not in the best of shape. So this was definitely a departure from my
Okay.
childhood.
Yeah, it's interesting because some people grow up. Because I watch my dad. He would wake up every morning. He'd go like exercise like for 4 hours. He's a maniac, and then he'd come home, take a nap, and then he'd go to work till late. And then like so, just that taught me just to be like a complete workhorse. Like if I'm not doing something, I can't just sit around and not do anything. I have to do something out there to improve myself. Do you feel like you're the same way? You have to do something every day, whether even if you can't weight train. Like when I got injuries and I couldn't weight train, I found something else to do. I found yoga, I found walking, I found fishing, I found other stuff that I could do. Is that the way you feel too?
Yeah, I mean, certainly I got other things going on. I mean, I play a little guitar. I mean, I'm extremely busy at work, so there's I definitely have a full day for sure, along with the training.
Okay.
sorry, you mentioned work there, and you don't have to be specific for obvious reasons if you don't want to. We had Todd the lineman on recently, and was saying just how physical his job is, pulling the cables, setting up the cables, etc., etc., and that can be brutally hard. Different weathers, 16, 17-hour days. If you don't want to be specific, but what kind of work do you do?
Well, currently, I mean, I've been in the field. I was in construction in my younger days. Currently, I'm a design engineer for a mechanical company. So we design, heating, air conditioning projects, piping projects, medical gas, things like that.
Oh, okay. Is that something that you had to go to college for? Is that a skill that you developed over time, or?
No, I didn't go to college. I mean, luckily, my career path just kind of guided me in that direction. I basically was lucky because at the end of the day, you're not going to find a career like this without going to school at this point. I mean, you can barely work at McDonald's without going to college these days.
Yeah, yeah,
I'm
definitely.
also thinking in terms of this stuff, Steve, because some of our listeners are younger, some of them are more my age, some of them are more S.Gentz age, but I would argue that the majority are younger. And one of the things that we sometimes talk about on the forums is the importance of education, the importance of a career, especially when you're younger, when you can be incredibly enthusiastic. How much of an impact does the work sometimes have on training, difficulty getting to the gym? or do you just make the time, or you know, your hours allow you to be there at certain times? And again, I'm thinking of Todd purely simply because he's done 16, 17-hour days, and I think we said on his show that sometimes it's just getting into the week gym once a week just to maintain the muscle that he's got, and hoping for a few easy days so you can actually get into the gym to grow. So sometimes work can get in the way. Do you find that, or does the nature of your work allow you to be able to get in the gym and do the stuff that you're currently doing?
Well, I'm lucky in the fact that my schedule is very flexible. I mean, I pretty much make my schedule, so I can always find the time. You know, I have X amount of things I need to get done in a day, and I can make the training fit in there somewhere.
Your gym looks really good. Do you train at your gym at a specific time? Or do you kind of mix it up? Since your job is so flexible, is there a certain time you like to train?
I typically like to go around lunchtime if I can. That would mean I got 2 meals and a snack in by that point, so I can. I'm pretty fueled for training. I don't necessarily like to go any earlier than that. I don't feel like I have the energy at that point.
Okay. So you're not a morning person,
A
pretty
little
much.
bit later.
You're not a morning person?
No, I mean I get up at 4:30 every day and get going on work and catching up on emails and things like that.
Yeah.
But I've tried going to the gym in the morning. It just doesn't work for me.
So you guys can check out his gym in the pictures, but I
Yeah.
just want to ask this. Like, it doesn't seem like there's that many people in your pictures when you're at the gym. So is it pretty dead pretty much at lunch? Or is it like get like really busy like around 5 or 6 in the evening? Is that
I mean, I can't speak to 5 or 6 in the evening. I can't even remember the last time I was there that late. But
yeah.
during lunch, it's typically the same people are there.
Yeah.
You know, daily, so it's kind of good to see the same crowd. There's not too many people. I'm never waiting. You know, our gym actually just changed ownership not too long ago, so we're kind of in limbo, waiting to see what's going to happen there.
Ooh, yeah.
Another gym in the area has taken over.
Yeah, it seems like with gyms, it's like they'll open and then they'll stay open for a few years, and then one day you'll show up and there'll be like a note on the door, and then literally the people working there don't even know, but like they'll just be like the owner just gets tired of it, and he'll either sell it, and then the other person will turn it into something else, or he'll just like be like, you know what, I'm losing too much money, I just want to close it. It's like you can't.
I'm gonna ask, because commercial, what I would call a hardcore gym, it struggles to make money. The Planet Fitness type gyms and the core market, if you like, make money because they're focused on fitness. And I'm thinking of S.Gentz, as Steve said, and I said this to Steve in the pre-show, it looks like the kind of gym that I would train at. Would I be able to get a good workout at? And one of the things, and I can't remember which member it was one of the first interviews we'd done, I believe, earlier this year, we were giving one of our membership because he was training at Planet Fitness, and he switched to what I would call a more full-on hardcore-ish type gym, and it's definitely made a difference to his physique. So I think sometimes, and S.Gentz may agree, may not agree, these kind of gyms make it easier, I think, if you're serious about your shit, to get your work done, to keep the muscle, etc., etc. Whereas the whole nature of Planet Fitness and the more mass market type gyms is not really aimed at the kind of physiques that we have on our forum. We've got multiple competing athletes on our forum, especially in the Australian section, but certainly in the American section. We've got a few British guys, and I think we've got, just recently, we've added a female Miss Olympia. I can't remember which class she's competing in, competitor in literally the next 2 weeks. So those people, I would argue, and yourself, I think, S.Gentz, I'm going to include here, would struggle to get the kind of workouts that I see you doing and the kind of physique you've got in a more fitness-orientated mass market gym. Do you think that's the case? Because we've got guys that have got great physiques from working at home. I've done that myself. So training at the gym that you do you think that helps you build the physique and maintain the physique that you've got?
It definitely does. I mean, you know, all the equipment is nice. There's actually 2 levels to my gym. The lower level has like all arsenal equipment. It's just really geared towards more of a hardcore bodybuilding scene. Then upstairs you have more lifestyle fitness and hammer strength and some of those manufacturers that are a little bit more geared towards just the fitness community and just general fitness. So I think we got a good blend here. I mean, I've been to Planet Fitness, I've been to larger commercial gyms, and it's not the same feeling. It's not the same vibe. No. I mean, here you go, you know, if you don't have your headphones on, the music's pretty loud, even if you if you don't agree with what they're playing, it's still a good atmosphere. I've been to gyms where there's no music, there's a bunch of 80-year-olds running around, and it's just it's really hard to focus in a gym like that.
Yeah, gym environment is so important, and it's hard, especially the way Mobster trains. Like it's hard to train from home. I tried it back when I was lifting heavy. I couldn't do it from home.
I've trained
It's
in
like
gyms
hard.
where I literally could not train the way that I train currently.
No.
I stayed at my brother's back in 2011, and there was a very nice commercial gym down the bottom of the hill that I'd walk down to, and I'd take the bus back. I was literally in a magazine that they had on the shelf, and I was able to show the owner my face, and I wasn't allowed to use chalk. All I did for the 3 months was maintain. I couldn't lift heavy. I couldn't do the stuff. The dumbbells weren't heavy enough. The machines wouldn't load up heavy enough. So literally, in that case, I would argue for me, I was being held back. Whereas the gym that I train at, and I've said this to listeners, and maybe again, S.Gentz could sort of say something to this effect here, how members around you respond to you. And we've seen members say that, literally, S.Gentz would probably be a good example here. Your physique will inspire other members to train hard. People will comment when you're making improvements. I've been supportive of my gym, and my gym has been supportive of me. And I've got a great home gym here that I could easily train in. So these, like I said, commercially, it doesn't make money, but in terms of our physique and our motivation and the atmosphere, these gyms can make a difference. And if you are, and I think you are, S.Gentz, because you're doing this on the forum, just literally by posting in your log, you will be noticed by other people. And without you even realizing it, you'll be inspiring, because they will see, literally, like I said, if someone looked at you the last 6, 7, 8 weeks, they will see you filling out, they will see you adding muscle to your body. And the kind of gym that I think that he trains at and I train at, people will notice what you're doing, and they even end up kind of becoming part of your journey. Do you think there's a little bit of truth to that as well for you, perhaps, even if it just motivates you to train harder?
Yeah, I would definitely agree. You're just not going to get that type of motivation at Planet Fitness or any commercial gym like that. It needs to be a little more specialized with equipment that's a little more geared towards what we do, not just a bunch of pin-loaded machines and soft music in the background. That's just not going to cut it.
So let's touch a little bit more on your log before we move on and talk more about your gear and your supplements, because it's quite an interesting amount of supplements that you take. That's really fascinating. Let's touch a little bit about your log. First of all, with the logs, how has doing a log helped you basically really be consistent and all that stuff? Tell us about that.
It's just a great theater to kind of show what you're doing, and be around other like-minded people. Obviously it's on the internet, so we have a worldwide reach here. So it's great to be able to be around other people that kind of do the same thing and show what I'm doing, and it's great to see what they're doing as well.
And with your log, what kind of comments have you been getting from people, like through private messaging or in general, that have said, "Wow, you've helped me, you've taught me this, you've taught me that"? What has been some of the feedback you've gotten on your log on the forums in general?
Most of the feedback is just positive feedback from mainly the VIP guys and some of the new members. I get instant messages once in a while, that ask me about gear or just kind of what I'm doing or why I'm doing a certain thing. And I try to help out the members as best I can. And I get the great red meat posts from Body Monster.
Yeah.
Let me ask him about that, Steve, because I was doing research for this show, and I hadn't seen those posts, S.Gentz. I literally speed read through some of the posts when these ones were being made. And Body Monster, who's a great character, was kind of annoying you a little bit, because you was doing a little bit of red meat a week, and then you were responding, as you said quite clearly in your log, to I respond well to chicken, I respond well to what I'm doing, and it's making my physique better. I don't need to be doing pounds and pounds of meat. And I think at some point you had to kind of tell him to slow the fuck down, or words to that effect, because he was going on about making you a steak, making you a real man. I think you kind of got a little tiny bit annoyed at the fact, just like, stop going on about red meat, for crying out loud. Obviously, if we're prepping, if we're training our asses off, if we're tired, etc., sometimes, and again, I think it's just the nature of his character and that's how he comes across. That kind of stuff, even in the gym. I'm just thinking of someone I spoke to this morning, and we were talking about the ridiculous amount of steroids you use for arguably a kind of nice-ish physique, but not for the amount of steroids he's using. So you will always have these characters that are extreme in the way that they talk, etc. But you're doing very well, getting great results, inspiring people, like I said, by eating moderate amounts of red meat. So that little bit of banter, as we would say, if it was Australia or UK, that little bit of a joshing, or as I said to you in the pre-show, the three bros talking shit, didn't necessarily, you wasn't enjoying it on that particular day. Talk a little bit, tiny bit about that, just a back and forth, perhaps.
Well, I mean, I get it. That's kind of his thing. He likes to get people going a little bit, and you can tell by the comments in that he puts on other people's logs that he'll kind of see what gets at you and he'll dig in a little bit, but and it's all in good fun. But at the end of the day, you got to do what's right for you. If red meat for me, I can eat it up to a certain point, but then my digestion gets destroyed, so I have to go back. So it just I think it would just be the texture of the meat. Same with like pork and pork tenderloin, things like that. It's difficult for me to digest. So I can only eat it so much, and I'd love to eat a steak every night for dinner, but it's not in my best interest. So I don't.
I've always said, when it comes to nutrition, a lot of people, they'll come to me and like, Steve, when I do consultation, they'll be like, can you lay out a diet for me that I can follow day by day? And I said, I cannot do that because everybody is so different. You have to, through trial and error, find what works for you and what doesn't. Someone like Body Monster will eat red meat every fucking meal and he'll do great on it. But someone like S.Gentz, he can't have red meat. Red meat is something he can only have in moderation. So everybody's gonna be a little different.
Yeah.
And what for me, like, I do eat more red meat myself, more than chicken, but because like literally like red meat is like so much easier to cook and it's like more, there's more value. Chicken has become so fucking expensive, especially some high quality chicken here in the United States. We eat so much chicken, there's so much demand for it. So unless you're going and getting like cheap ass chicken from like a fast food joint or something, it's become really expensive to eat chicken. Like, so for me, like I do eat a lot more red meat these days, especially like chicken is like 11 or $12 a pound for like organic chicken. And I can get like some,
that's fucked up.
Yeah, I'm gonna eat like a regular. There's right now a sale going on for $8 a pound for roast beef for beef roast. So I can get the beef roast, chop it up, and put it on the grill, and it's like 30% less. So at the end of the day, it could be an economic thing or whatever. But let me give you an example, S.Gentz, of what you're doing yesterday. You posted a diet. And this is what you said. You said 2,262 calories, which is pretty surprising for someone who's 206 pounds. Because especially, in your situation, working out and stuff, you can talk about that in a second. And then the protein's at 211, the carbs is higher than the protein at 248, and then the fats are at 77. And then you have 4 meals, 4 whole eggs, 1 slice no fat cheese, 5 slices toast. Then you've got your meal 2 8-ounce chicken thigh, 250 grams of rice. Chicken thighs are actually good because they're way less expensive than chicken breasts. So that's actually a good economic strategy for those of you listening, you younger guys who are listening, who are trying to be more economical when you get your protein. And chicken thighs is actually pretty cheap. I think it's like maybe $5 a pound, $6 a pound. And then meal 3 is 6 whole eggs, 6 slices of toast, butter/jam. And then meal 4 is 1.5 cottage cheese. What is that? What is that?
It's a cup. 1.5, 1.5 cups.
Oh, cups. Okay. And then blueberries and raspberries. So pretty simple stuff that you're doing. And you're not going in there and you're getting like 3,500 calories a day. You're not getting like 400 grams of protein. And so talk about your diet a little bit. You keep that really simple and structured, and it seems to work well for you.
Well, yesterday's diet was kind of an off day. I had a kind of an unplanned rest day just due to some work obligations and the stress testing that I went on. So I just kind of backed it off and made it kind of more of a rest day meal. But for me, I just like to keep things consistent. It's just easier. I don't have to go in into Chronometer and log everything every day because it's done already. I make my meals in the beginning of the week. At least my meal 2 and my post-workout meal are usually the same daily. Again, yesterday was a little bit different. But typically, I just like to keep things consistent, and I'll run that same diet for a couple weeks, a month, maybe 2 months before I get tired of it and want to switch. So that's pretty much where I'm at with diet. Simplicity is easy for me. It's key.
Are you getting your eggs from like a local farmer? I know you guys have farmers out there in like upstate New York and stuff. Or do you get it like from a supermarket?
I buy them when we're at our land. We have a bunch of farms out there that I buy them from, and I'll bring them home. But if I'm not able to have them, my local store has some organic eggs from local farmers that they come
Okay.
in. So
Yeah, that's interesting because I remember we had a guy in the forum, JP. He lived like in Pennsylvania. He'd go to the Amish and he'd get like, raw milk and raw eggs and all this stuff from like the Amish. You don't have Amish people where you're at, right?
not by my home, but by our property, they're actually, I think they're considered Mennonites.
Okay, so it's like
It,
something similar, yeah.
it's very similar, yes, but yeah, we can get the eggs, the milk, and stuff. I'm not sure that I would go with the raw milk. I don't drink a ton of
Yeah,
cow's milk anyways, but that's a whole nother
yeah.
world there.
Are you able to digest dairy?
Oh
Okay.
yeah, no problem with dairy at all.
Oh, okay, because I noticed you have the cheese and the cottage cheese. Tell us a little bit about cottage cheese. I see some guys really like cottage cheese for the protein and the fat
Yeah.
content and stuff like that. Talk about cottage cheese a little bit. It's not something that I consume. I'm not a
I don't
dairy
like
person.
it, Steve. It's
Huh?
disgusting, but I don't like it. And quick one for you guys. A buddy of mine's been having cottage cheese with tuna or something, zaps it, blends it, and then they make, and I think there's actually a recipe for this online, zaps it in the microwave, and it comes out like some weird, cheesy, tunery cake, which people are apparently doing as a thing. And I thought it sounds absolutely disgusting. It's up there with tuna and 7 Up blended in a blender, and then people were just drinking that back in the day. But if you like it, it's a good source of protein. I think it's around 25-30% protein, so not quite as high as tuna, but and again, cheap for what it is. And if you can digest it well, you can also add things like pineapple, which makes it sweeter and also makes it easy to digest as well. So tell us a little bit about, as Steve says, in terms of your experience with that, and as a way of you getting your protein and your carbs, etc.
Well, definitely any blending of meals is a little more hardcore than I am. That's those guys are a different story. But going to the cottage cheese, I mean, I basically added that in maybe 2-3 weeks ago. And it was more just kind of looking to do something different besides a shake. I was doing a shake at night, and I really didn't look forward to that. And I would find myself maybe skipping it, or every once in a while, or I didn't look forward to it. And if you don't look forward to something, you're not going to want to eat it.
Yeah.
It's harder to do. So my wife eats cottage cheese every morning for breakfast, so I just started grabbing her cottage cheese and eating that, and I've been that way for a couple weeks now, and it's been working.
So let's get into the sups and medicine and the steroids. Let's start with the supplement. So this is one of your supplement days, and it's quite really a good list. You got 12 grams of fish oil, 15 to 30 grams fiber on top of good fiber, and then you take benazepril 10/20 milligrams daily, and then 4 caps N2 Guard daily, 1,200 milligrams of citrus bergamot daily. Great antioxidant. 1,200 milligrams of NAC, 1,000 milligrams of TUDCA, 200 milligrams DHEA, 100 milligrams of ashwagandha, 100 milligrams of pregnenolone, 6 milligrams of boron, and 50 milligrams of iron. So touch a little bit about some of those supplements, why they're in there, and why guys should be taking a look at some of these as well.
I mean, we all know that the N2 Guard is a great product. For me, I added that little bit of NAC and TUDCA on there. It just improves my blood work. It's just a great additional item that you can add to it. I mean, my blood work has been, aside from the recent cholesterol issue that I had, my blood work has been better than it has been in years. So that kind of stays in. The amlodipine, benazepril is basically for my blood pressure. It's not out of control. I think I was like around low 130s, over 180, 190. But blood pressure is what kills your kidneys, and if you want to have longevity, you need to be healthy. So things like that need to be kept under control. There's no reason not to take a prescription for something like that if you need it. As far as the other ones, the astragalus is just great for heart health, cardiovascular health. The same with the DHEA. The ashwagandha, pregnenolone, boron, that's actually a combination that I've been trying recently. So I don't really have too much to go on that right now, but we'll see how it goes. My pregnenolone has always been low. And I used to, per my doctor, supplement with that years ago, and I kind of stopped doing that, but I'm back on that, just kind of see what it does. I've been taking the iron because my iron has been low. My white blood cell count has been low for years. So we're trying to improve that a little bit. And, obviously I don't eat a ton of red meat, which is where most people are going to get a lot of their iron from. So I've been supplementing 15 milligrams. May have to increase that. I did get some blood work back yesterday, and my ferritin was tanked. So I don't know if that's just a function of the TRT or if there's actually an issue there, but we're working through that.
So your steroid list, this is how you started. You got 500 milligrams of test, 300 milligrams of DECA, 500 milligrams of EQ. So right off the bat, bulker. So 5 IUs of HGH. It's a pretty strong dose. Usually the Australians on our forum run the HGH pretty high. So it's not as common to see the Americans run it that high. So talk about that in a
I
second.
did make a note on that,
Yeah.
Steve, that you started actually with a lower amount and you built up to 5 IUs.
And
So
then
I
it
did.
says insulin later in cycle, anadrol later in cycle. So touch on what you're taking now versus that list.
So I am taking everything but the anadrol right now. Anadrol I'll save. I mean, I'm only about 4 weeks in. Anadrol I'll save for at least another 4 weeks. Typically, I'll use something like that later on to kind of push through any blockages I have with lifting or anything like that, just to keep everything moving along. Our goal here is to build muscle, and stagnation obviously is not building muscle. So I kind of use that to push. As far as the GH, I've used all different levels and kinds and stuff. I've done all different kinds of injection styles to see kind of what works best. I've done 20 IU 3 times a week. I've done 1 IU every day, 2 IU, 5-2, things like that. Last couple of years, I've been doing like 4 IU. I'll do 2 in the morning and then 2 post workout. But I found the best for me on a growing phase is just to go with everything right after the gym. So I've been basically just doing 5 IU daily on training days, and the results are kind of speaking for themselves.
A lot of the Australian guys also are big on microdosing. Is that something that you do with the DECA and test and EQ, or do you just pin it once or twice a week?
No, I'll go just twice a week. I mean, right now with everything I'm doing, you're talking, you're in the 6 mils a week, if not a little more there. So it's, I could go more just to keep the volume low, but I can handle it where I'm at. So I try to go 2 times a week. If I have to go any more than that, then I'm probably taking too much.
Talk about the timing of your insulin and how much are you going? Are you taking it like post workout? Are you taking it pre-workout?
Yeah, so this is my first time with insulin. I've used IGF a couple times in the past, but I noticed some ill effects that I didn't necessarily care for, as far as like growth of moles, things like that. Because obviously it's not focusing on muscles; it's focusing on growing anything it can. So I've kind of changed my mindset a little bit and started looking towards insulin a little more. Like I said, this is my first go with it. I'm basically using it post workout, and I'm matching my carbs. So I can get away with, about 10 to 12 grams of carbs per IU. So currently, if I'm working out around noon, I'll hit my meal 2, 10:30, 11 o'clock. I'll go to the gym. While I'm at the gym, I've been taking about 25 grams of carbs via just like dextrose in a drink. And then I'll slam a banana when I'm done, along with a protein shake. And that's when I'll take the insulin. Currently, I'm taking 8 IU post-workout, probably about 15 minutes after I'm done training.
And then do you plan on increasing the HGH more to kind of balance that out? Or are you going to keep it at 5 max?
I mean, I'm not opposed to looking at it. It depends on where, how my blood work's looking. I'll follow that. I'll probably, the plan
like blood work as in,
if my resting glucose starts to get high.
so how do you test for that? Do you poke your finger, or how are you testing for that?
I just have my doctor send me for blood work.
Okay, so you don't like test it like randomly throughout the day to see where that's at?
No, I've
Oh,
never had any issues with glucose, so I'm not, even with
okay.
even with very high amounts of HGH, so I'm not overly concerned with that. I mean, I definitely watch it, but it's not something I feel
Okay.
I need to look at
So
regularly.
the main
I'm going to
purpose here
sorry,
is to
Steve.
go ahead.
I'm going to say that you're very good by the sounds of it, S.Gentz, and I wouldn't be. I think Steve might be, and you're definitely very good at monitoring your values, getting feedback from your blood test. We talk about the importance of these to members, but it's a habit that many people should have and don't have. So it does definitely sounds to me like you're very good at monitoring your feedback from your body. You're very good at looking at the data that's coming in from these blood tests. You're very good at noticing how you respond to certain particular things. I think sometimes, even with the structured stuff that we talk about on the shows, it can be a little bit hit and miss. We did a show recently, we talked about how difficult it can be to be self analytical, but you have values here, numbers, etc., that you can look at and know exactly what's going on with your body. And some of the responses you gave earlier is an indication when you said, I'll see how my body responds. And way more, I think, analytical, way more observant of how your body's responding to calories, to glucose, to insulin, to growth, and so on and so forth. Would you say that that was true? That you're perhaps it's a sign of something that you've got into the habit of doing as you got older and being way more observant of your numbers and your values?
I think you have to. I mean, at the end of the day, we're all doing a science experiment on our bodies, and you really need to be responsible for what you're doing. Day by day, we see a lot of people that come on the forums and stuff asking questions that, have clearly done no research or just really don't have an idea of even where to begin. But, again, at the end of the day, you're responsible for yourself. You need to make sure you're healthy if you want to survive in this game because it's not the healthiest sport out there for sure.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And like keeping an eye on especially the way you're doing with your blood pressure. So that's the number one killer. Bodybuilders or non-bodybuilders in America right now is the heart health. We thicken up our blood so much using these compounds and then we ignore these red flags out there with the blood pressure and then we find ourselves getting heart attacks at a really young age and we wonder what happened. Well, a lot of that is preventable like you're saying. So it's really good. Everyone should check out S.Gentz's log and see his layout and see what supplements he's taking and what blood pressure meds he's taking. And it's something to talk to your doctor about for sure. Is that something that your doctor is working you with when it comes to using steroids, or is that something that you kind of keep quiet from your doctor? I'm assuming the latter.
Well, I mean, the TRT obviously it's not my regular doctor. It's a homeopathic physician that I go to. He's a little more conservative, and he understands. He understands we're going to follow the path we want to follow, and he's going to help me do it. Regular doctor, they know what's going on. They know I'm on TRT. They monitor my blood work. I'll answer any questions they have, but I don't divulge. Hey, I'm on a steroid cycle right now. We got to do this extra blood work. I just ask for what I'm looking for, and they respond.
Yeah, so that's good. You're using like a mix of doctors that suits what you're looking for sure. So let's get into the next topic, Lucy. Let's talk a little bit about Lucy. And Lucy is a very cuddly dog, I'll put it that way, and it likes your bed a lot. So talk about Lucy a little bit. What kind of this is a mutt, right? It's not like a specific breed or
She's a mutt. Yeah, she's actually Irish setter, believe it or not. Doodle and Austrian cattle hound.
is that something you got a DNA test for, or is that something that they told you?
That was from coming from the breeder. The lady actually
Oh.
breeds these particular dogs.
Oh, okay.
So
And what
something Steve and I said that we were going to talk to you about in regards to pets. Look, first things first, guys, and this is for the benefit of the listeners. The suggestion of having pets on the forum seemed a little bit left field, and yet it was kind of sweet. And how many hardcore training, kick-ass, fighting, drinking, brawling, shagging kind of guys also were pet lovers. Something that Steve and I have discussed in pre-shows and off-air many times is the fact that we're both cat lovers. And the thing that we thought about, and we're going to ask you about this now, S.Gentz, is as well as the obvious sort of softer side that we might have when it comes to animals, I think we both agree that there's a sort of de-stressing element to having dogs or cats as part of our life, and how we're very serious about our shit in the gym. We're very focused about what we're doing. We're on these high levels of testosterone. We're taking hormones, etc. We can stress our bodies. And one of the things, even for your mental health, the idea of having a cat or dog, something else to look after, that's a little bit cuddly, a little bit affectionate, etc., etc., doing stupid shit like getting on their beds or falling through my fucking full ceiling 2 days ago in the case of one of my cats. It's just you don't think of hardcore bodybuilders, and I'm thinking of Samson Dualda's the current Mr. Olympia, the next 2 weeks at least, and he's got his great big mastiff of a dog, and yet you see this thing slobbering around, sitting on a sofa. So talk a little bit about the impact perhaps that Lucy the dog has on your life, and maybe as a de-stressor, maybe as a relaxer for you, or just whatever.
Well, first off, I mean, pets belong in any form. It's always great when you see a "Show Us Your Pets" tab on there. It's great to see. You know these people mainly through what they post on these forums and maybe some pictures. So you don't really know them, but you have a sense of them. But then when you see them kind of in a different light with their cat or their dog or whatever pets they have, it just paints a kind of a different picture and kind of lets you know a little more about that person. But I mean, animals are great. I mean, I'm more of a dog guy. I've had cats as when I was younger, but I'm definitely allergic to them, so it makes it difficult for me. So I tend to stick to dogs. But I mean, they're great. It's a great companion. When you come home, they're waiting for you. When you have problems, they're your therapist. They listen to you. They don't give you any shit. They're just always there for you. And they're just it's
Let
great.
me jump in again, guys, and it's just as an aside again for the listeners. There was a meme on Facebook some months ago, and it's a wife sitting on the sofa, and she says to the husband, "Why do you make such a fuss of that dog?" And he says, "When I get home from work, you want me to take the garbage out. You're asking me for money for bills. You want me to make arrangements for the weekend. When I come home, the dog's nose is up against the window and its tail starts wagging, and then it's running up and down the hallway, really excited." And it wants to sit next to me on the sofa. I get a better vibe off the dog when I come in than I do off of you, my darling, sort of thing. So there's this whole sort of nature of how they are and they respond, and very simple and so on and so forth. What about I mean, there's something that Steve and I are interested in, hopefully the listeners as well. Tell us a little bit about, and you mentioned it just now, your other bit of land, your cabin, your getaway space that you go to, which is also a de-stressor. And it's also something that's a bit different about you. We've only got one or two members that are in a similar position to yourself in that regards.
So, I mean, over the last, I don't know, maybe 10, 12 years, we've always enjoyed camping. We'll go to different locations. Maybe we used to rent houses, things like that with our friends. And then, I think around 2015, 16, we got a camper, a smaller camper. And we just decided that we really enjoyed kind of going around, checking different places out. At that point, we had two larger dogs and toting our in-laws around. So we decided we needed a bigger camper. But having a larger camper that you have to tow around and set up and everything kind of gets a little bit old. So I think it was around 2019, 2020, we started kind of looking for land in the area that we'd like to camp around, which is kind of like in the Finger Lake area of New York. And we just happened to find a great piece of property that we loved. It was just a wooded 25-acre plot, had a couple of trails that were put in for some logging. And we took it from there. I mean, we took it from basically just a forest to, right now we've got the barn, we've got some toys out there, we've got, full septic system, gas, electric, all that stuff. So it's basically an extension of our home that we go to.
So you bought it or did you rent it?
No, we bought it.
Wow, that's a great investment, man. 25 acres, that's a lot. So 25 acres would be how many miles, like square, how many miles one
I
way and
think
the
it's
other way?
about 70,000 square foot an acre, Steve, just to give you an idea. Most UK supermarkets are between 70 and 100,000 square feet. So it's the size of probably close to 30 decent sized supermarkets, which with land and trails sounds fucking awesome. I know that
Mhm.
one of the photographs, I think it says, Gents, you've got a huge pickup truck that some of the guys commented on to pull the trailer around on. And I think he's just said as well, one of the great advantages he's mentioned already is the fact that he can go and buy organic eggs and chicken, etc., from the local farmers when he's in the area. So to me, and I even looked at Steve myself some years ago. I've got a few bucks, as you know. The idea of buying 3 or 4 acres of forestry, perhaps it's even a tax write-off. And the idea of being able to camp in a forest and know it's your fucking land
You're like,
is
as you know,
unbelievable.
Steve. You're like, as you know, Steve. It's coming to me, buddy, when you go pass away. You know that, right? I'm inheriting
I think
it.
my daughter was talking about investing in looking at auction for chapels, but there's certain things that come with buying former places of worship in terms of what you can do and whether you can turn them into Airbnbs and so on and so forth. But listen, look, aspirationally, the idea of being able to get away for the weekend is number one, which he was already doing. The idea of being able to get away for the weekend to my fucking land with a cabin in a forest with trails, it's just right up there, Steve, honestly. And again, we talk about the stress and whatever of modern life and so on and so forth. And you touched upon, Western society's issues with obesity. The reality, I think the idea that S.Gentz is able to get into his pickup, stick stuff on the back, fill up, the trailer bed with whatever he needs for the weekend, jump in there with Lucy, jump in there with his wife, and drive down to his fucking cabin in the woods is just awesome. And in fact, I know when he's posted some of the photographs and the comments of all, I don't think there's been one negative comment, S.Gentz. It's all been positive. I think you're living it without maybe that being what made you do it. You're kind of living a dream in that regards. It's up there with a Malibu home and castle on a fucking mountain. It's one of those things that guys, especially guys, I think really like the idea of having a little bit of land, perhaps something as Steve just jokingly said, you can leave to your buddies or the family or whatever. So yeah, I won't say I'm jealous, but I definitely love the fact that you've got this.
Well, I mean, I don't know about how it is in the UK, but in the United States, I mean, buying land is never a bad investment here. I mean, it always appreciates. And like I said, with the camping, it got to a point where you're wasting Friday getting ready to go camping. You have one day Saturday to relax, and then you're coming home on Sunday. So you really, it's more stress actually having
setting up, breaking down, get everything ready. You just turn up there and it's already ready.
Exactly. I mean, we show up, we put some chairs out, put the awning out, and open the barn, and we're ready to go.
How does it work with the RV? Like, do you have to hook it up to something to get water and sewage and stuff like that? How does that work?
Yeah, I mean, it's basically like similar to your home. So there's a water hookup. We have a well there, so we ran underground piping. We ran underground sewage piping to a septic system, and we have like a drainage field and all that stuff. So it's really, you could essentially lift our trailer off the land and pop a house there, and it would essentially be the same thing.
Steve, he also gets better internet tonight too.
I know, right? Everybody gets better than you do.
I'll tell you what, our internet out there is better than at my home. It's fiber optic. It's actually cheaper, and it's insane. At home, it's hit or miss, and we live in a fairly urban area.
He's going to turn up one weekend, and me and Body Monster are going to be having a barbecue. We've moved in.
I know. Body Monster's going to be there waiting for you, S.Gentz. Yeah, like, dude, what are you doing on my land? He's gonna put some cattle on your land, cattle ranch it.
Yeah, right. We thought about some goats, but unfortunately we're not there enough to take care of them.
So one more question though on your cabin. When it comes to electric bill and stuff like that, like is it like how does that work? How do you keep it warm during the winter and stuff like that?
We shut it down for the winter. So we winterize it. We put glycol in the lines and the water lines, things like that.
Okay.
The electric stays on. The internet has been on the last couple of years because we had some cameras out there, but I think we're just going to shut that down. We don't. Our neighbor watches our land.
So you have a neighbor, okay, and then you have your internet's through satellite, or is it hooked up?
No, it's fiber coming right from our cable provider.
How does that get all the way out there?
We're on a street which actually had the fiber optic lines there.
Okay.
And they ended right before our property, but luckily our internet provider was able to actually run the lines down to our house. And I think we had about 600 something feet of cable buried getting to our router, which we've already had.
So it's not that out there, but it's it's like kind of out there, but it's not like out in the middle of nowhere where you can't get electricity or anything.
Oh yeah, I mean, yeah, we have electricity. There's a road there. It's rural enough that there's no like sewers or natural gas or anything like that, but we have all that covered. We have a neighbor my neighbor's property starts about 50 feet from my barn, and I can see her house from my camper.
So we're going let's talk about advice and knowledge. So let's start with that while we're on that subject. Let's go back to Lucy a little bit. What advice do you have out there for people who have never had a pet, never had a dog or cat, or maybe they had it as a kid or something as an adult, Because I see people, they get dogs and they don't even have a yard for their dog. And and they put their dog in a cage all day while they're at work for like 9 hours, and they come home and they don't even walk their dog. They don't like spend. So like I always tell people, if you're gonna get a dog, it's something, even a cat, it's a huge thing, like where you gotta take care of it, you gotta spend time with it, you gotta do all this stuff. Like some people, they just keep their dog locked up and the dog barks and barks and barks all day, and it just is miserable, and it's just like, why did you get a dog? So what's some advice for people out there thinking about getting pets that you have for them before they go ahead and get a pet?
I mean, I would definitely say go for it. I mean, the pets enrich your life, no matter what they are. Even a fish that you could talk to and look at is going to enrich your life. But at the same time, you need to get something that fits into your lifestyle. If you live in a small apartment, you're not going to get a mastiff. You're going to get something that's appropriate for where you live, and your comfort level with taking care of that animal. Because I mean, there's nothing that breaks my heart more than to see mistreated animals, or just people that get animals and then get rid of them because it's too much for them. So you really got to. It's a big decision, and you really got to take it seriously.
And then on the cabin thing, what's some advice for you if someone's out there listening, like, wow, this sounds like a really good idea. Maybe I want to go and drive an hour or two out in the country, maybe look for a cabin or go online, and Zillow on realtor.com, whatever, and start looking for a cabin to buy. What's some mistakes that you made in the whole process, and what's some right things that you did where people can get good value and not buy something that they're going to regret buying?
Well, you definitely need to understand the market, understand what the land's going for. I mean, you could easily get swept into buying a piece of property that is, way overpriced just because of the view. I mean, I'll give you an example. We looked at a piece of land that was 5 acres, but you pretty much could see the entire length of the lake. Probably one of the best views you could have. But it was also 5 times what we paid for our 25 acres. And I was very nervous. We looked at that. My wife would be like, "Yeah, this is the one." But luckily, she was sensible about it. But you just got to understand the market. You got to understand what you're getting into. It is a lot of work, especially if you buy raw land, as we did. We spent a lot of time on excavators and equipment, and just to shape the land how we wanted it. So
Can you give us a number on that?
what's a number on what?
On how much you have to pay for the excavators and all that stuff?
I mean,
Is it thousands or is it tens of thousands or?
I mean, we've probably got, I mean, we have our own tractor that does a lot of work, but we're probably $5,000-6,000 into rental.
So if someone goes and buys one of those things, they should expect to spend even more money shaping it and stuff. Is that what you're saying?
Oh, no doubt, no
Yeah.
doubt. I mean, I think we paid around 75 for the raw land, and we're well into $200,000 of expenditures since 2020.
So you spent more on expenditures than you did on an actual land. In other words, it's like buying a boat. The boat isn't what's expensive; it's the maintenance on the boat. Is that what you're
Yeah,
saying?
yeah, sure. No doubt, no doubt.
Okay. And then, like, what advice can you give on people? Like, what are some red flags if they're going to look at a place that they should watch out for? Should they maybe check to make sure there's not like some whack jobs that live out there that are gonna like, you know, like you're gonna show up to your right, and they're gonna be like, oh, you drove through my land. I've seen shows on that where like there's like streets and it's like the actual street drives through someone's private property, but the person bought
I'll
the
give you an
land.
example. Steve and I have talked off show about Steve liking to live where there's a homeowners association, and we don't really have those here in the UK. It's very rare. And Steve sent me a list of some of the restrictions that you can have. So certain things that listeners would be familiar with versus what they're not familiar with. The homeowners thing for me was just like, Steve likes that structure. He likes that there are rules. He likes that you don't get idiots because they have to do the rules. And yet, as I said to Steve, we see shows and YouTube and Instagram videos where the quote unquote Karen or male or female.
Well, there's a show
regulations.
called
So, yeah.
Fear Thy Neighbor. It's usually it doesn't end well. Like someone by the end of the show gets shot over something like this, over someone. Oh, you're driving through my land. I'm
Yeah,
going to shoot
that's what
you.
I was going to say. The land thing to me, well, in a perverse way, Steve, the land thing kind of can be, if you have an arsehole, worse because it's one thing to not be allowed to put a satellite dish out or have some plastic flamingo on your lawn because of the rules. It's something else when you're fight. I've literally been chased off with the girlfriend off a piece of land that had a public right of way for it, and the farmer was screaming at us, and I mean screaming. calmed the fuck down, and we walked away. But that's the kind of stuff that can sometimes happen. If you do get on with your neighbours, if you are cool, if you are respectful, because there's a public right of way. I go across this piece of land regularly when I'm out on my nature trail walks, just locally, and they have to have the gates there. I don't think they're entirely happy, but I'm always respectful. I don't put any rubbish down, etc., etc. So for me, some of that is just not being an arsehole when you come to meet these people. And, you know, if they're stressful, let them be stressful. But yeah, have you had any side issues or any problems in that particular way, S.Gentz, with regards to owning a property above and beyond the money that you've had to put in?
Well, with our property specifically, we ended up meeting our neighbor when we were looking at the land. So we knew a little bit what we were getting into with the neighbors and stuff before we even got there. Her family essentially owns the entire hill that surrounds us. So it's basically all her and her family. So there's really nothing to worry about there.
Yeah.
We had one neighbor whose uncle owned, who I purchased the land from, lives just at the bottom of the hill on the bottom of our property, and we had to have a nice conversation with him the first year about his hunting on our land. You know, after it became ours instead of his family's. But you know, you get it resolved, and hopefully you don't.
Oh, I hate that shit. Yeah, I see like in Texas, like there's a show where it's all, dude, it's a felony. If you go on someone's land and you hunt, that's trespassing. That's a felony. They don't fuck around.
Mm.
Like, you know, with that. I hate that
But,
shit.
but
I'd be
Steve,
so angry if someone did that.
you also get that I've been hunting you for generations. Who the fuck are you, new boy? So there's a little bit of that kind of stuff goes
Yeah.
on. Again, it helps that I think some of us three people, we're kind of muscular, we're kind of big, we should put out positive energy. And again, it's about being respectful, understanding that they've been here for generations. A stupid example again, Steve, the property that I'm thinking of, there's actually two houses, and I talked to both these, one more than the other one. And this is, again, just using the public right of way, which is essentially a path down their drive that they both share. And there's a footpath that extends beyond, but it's all overgrown, but it's still signposted by the local council, the local county, or whatever you want to call it. So for me, a silly example, Madonna brought a £40 million house here in the UK when she was in the relationship or married to Guy Ritchie. And she was badly advised because 40 yards from her back door was a public right of way with a hedge in front. And of course, the photographers immediately she bought the property used this public right of way to stand on the other side of the hedge and take photographs of the house. And she's £40 million, about 50 something $1 million out of pocket, not realizing there's this public right of way that went right through her acreage that the public had been using for the last 200 years or something stupid. And she could not stop the photographers using. So there are things, as I think S.Gentz indicated, you do need to know what you're getting into. I would absolutely, this is for the benefit of listeners, I would absolutely go and introduce myself or invite over, come and have a glass of wine, come and sit down and have a cup of coffee.
A glass of wine. I don't think they drink wine.
You do what you got. This, it depends on the vibe.
I think he said, I think they drink beer. But I think we're S.Gentz is they drink beer.
Whatever it takes, man. I'll put the kettle on.
Invite them over for some British tea.
If it was Bloody Monster, you'd no doubt get the beer out and get a couple of lounge lizards out or whatever the fuck.
I don't think those hunters sit around drinking beer though.
Yeah, so whatever it is, you know, whatever your thing is, that's what you got to do, just to get to know the neighbours and make sure you're only coming down for the weekend. You're chilled, you're relaxed. You're not going to fucking freak the fuck out if your neighbour comes onto your property. Make sure they let you know that they're there, so you can't run around naked or whatever. You know, it's just that kind of vibe, Steve. So yeah, especially in those situations. If I bought a piece of forest, the way that I was looking to buy it, Steve, would be multiple owners of the rest of the forest. I'd only be owning 3 or 4 acres, but it is sectioned off. But I don't want my neighbours, especially if I've just bought it, come trampling along my bit. But at the same time, there's public rights of way. There's footpaths that might be just outside the property. Yeah. No good. Yeah. The people that buy stuff near airports or near racetracks and they complain about airplanes and racing cars, it's silly. You're buying a piece of property surrounded by farmers. You need to understand that farmers do their shit and whatever else. So you're absolutely.
So let's finish out the show, S.Gentz, on diet, steroids, training. What's some advice that you've learned over the years that you can share with the guys out there who want to become like you and be consistent and have a conditioned physique and feel good every day and live the life. And honestly, you have a really good life compared to 99% of people out there. So share some of your knowledge the last few minutes.
Yeah, we've definitely been fortunate, as to what we were able to attain and do in our lives. So again, we feel fortunate for that. But the biggest thing is ask the questions. A lot of people kind of get bad advice from other internet forums or social media, and by the time they get to us, they're already into it and they're already on the wrong path. So ask the questions first. I mean, that's huge, I think.
And then on diet, what are some tips on diet you can share with people out there?
The best thing you can do is just be consistent. It's if your diet's all over the place, and your weight's all over the place, you have no idea what's causing it or what's going on. If I'm eating the same thing every day and all of a sudden I go out for pizza and I weigh 3 pounds more the next day, I know exactly why. It's not going to happen if I'm eating the same chicken and rice every day. If something else is going on, I'm holding water or something's happening, then that's something that maybe I need to go get some blood work and see because there's actually something going on. So,
talk a little bit in terms of advice. Sorry, just to interrupt. There's some people, just a small percentage, thankfully, where they think steroids are the be all and end all in part of what we do, versus the sheer hard work and the consistency, which is a word that you said a few times. That's a key phrase here. And I'm going to say this with S.Gentz. He talks about controlling his diet. So if he manipulates the diet, he knows what's changed. If he sees an improvement, he knows what he's done to make that improvement. There's a thing with the steroids, as I just said, where some younger members and ill-informed, as you just said, perhaps think that steroids will transform their physique. But the reality is you've got to grind, you've got to put in the work. And you use the word consistency. So talk a little bit about the importance of that foundational work, the consistency, the controlling your diet, and the importance overall together with PEDs. Perhaps it's a sort of message to a younger listener who's just coming into the sport for the first time.
Well, I mean, what people don't get is that steroids are a very small percentage of, what it actually takes to build a good physique. Your food, your training, your recovery, and your genetics are really what's going to determine how you look at the end of the day. And you can take all the gear you want, but if those other things aren't on point, you're just going to be in poorer health and look exactly the same. It takes years to get to this. I mean, I'm pushing 50 years old now. I started TRT maybe, I don't know, 12, 13 years ago, and I started using gear a little bit after that. But you need to have all those years prior to build that foundation. If you just started working out a year ago and then all of a sudden you're taking these big cycles of gear, you're renting muscle. You don't have that base. So you put on a little bit of size, and then when you come off, you're going to look just like you were or even worse.
Let me ask you one more question, S.Gentz, and this is just again for the benefit of our regular listeners and the members of the forum. What do you like? What do you think you've got from being on the Evolutionary, either in what you've been received from people or what you give out to people? What little impacts has Evolutionary had for you on your physique, on your outcome, everything that you do in training?
I mean, I've learned a lot about gear, training, food. I mean, I've learned a lot from coming on this site, and then on top of that, that'll lead me to questions that I may have that I may go off and research, or I may hit somebody up on the side. I think actually, Steve, I talked to you years ago about some diet stuff, maybe like 6-7 years back. But it's just being around other like-minded people and kind of having the same experience, and then sharing your experience with them.
All right, S.Gentz, appreciate you coming on. Check out S.Gentz's log and his prior logs as well. It's really good information. And definitely come on the forum and, get a log going. Do you recommend other people, S.Gentz, put up a log as well?
I certainly do. At the end of the day, it's motivational. It's nice to kind of wake up in the morning and see a bunch of people commented on a great workout that you had, or, that you're putting up PRs, and it's nice to be recognized for that,
Yep. Absolutely. Listen, S.Gentz, thank you very much for coming on. I think we've enjoyed the show. I suspect the listeners will enjoy the show. We get some insight into members like S.Gentz that are popular, that are informative, very helpful. And as he says, he's learning all the time. He's getting that benefits from the forum. Come onto the forum and check out his log. Listen to this show. Give us feedback. If there's questions that we could have asked, is there things you want to know about that we missed out on? We're always going to be interested. As always, please note, we are not doctors. Any opinions on these shows are ours. It is our view and based on our experience and views on the topic. A podcast are for informational purposes and entertainment only. The freedom of speech and the First Amendment applies.